Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name, is a long name for a video game, for one thing. It's also a potentially confusing name if you're new to the Like a Dragon series, or if you're a Yakuza fan who just isn't keeping tab on things. You lead a busy life, probably. With the recent trailers, I've seen a lot of confusion around this game, and as a series fan, I figured I could help clear the air. If you happen to be unfamiliar with these games, I'll establish the basics for you here so you know what's going on. So, if you saw Kiryu in the thumbnail and are wondering what happened to the Yakuza series, basically it rebranded. If you're in the States, it's like how Dunkin' Donuts became Dunkin'. It's a little weird at first, but a fact of life that's easy to remember once you know it. So when you look at Yakuza games on your PlayStation, Xbox, PC, wherever, all of the old ones will still be called Yakuza. Now, if they ever get re-released again on newer systems, maybe Sega will take the opportunity to rebrand them at that point, but for now, Yakuza Like a Dragon was basically a baton pass. From then onward, we are officially in the era of the Like a Dragon series. This change is largely due to it being what the series was always called in Japan. In addition to some other factors like the series focusing more on general underworld crime over time than just the Yakuza specifically, by the series producer's own admission. So to be crystal clear, it's still the same series and it's still the same continuing storyline. Nothing about any of that has changed. Now that said, it's probably also worth throwing out that we received Like a Dragon Ishin earlier this year, which is a period piece sort of deal that has no story relation to the main series. What's a good comparison here? You know what? The Muppets Christmas Carol, that's the comparison. You can watch The Muppets Christmas Carol without having seen any Muppets media. It's obviously not tied to the sacred Muppets canon or anything, but it's more fun to watch if you are a fan. Like a Dragon Ishin is kinda like The Muppets Christmas Carol. I will stand by this. And there's always a lot of question as to which Yakuza game someone should start with. I'm even in my friend the Golden Bolts video about that exact topic, but increasingly over time, I am of the opinion that you should just pick one that looks interesting and jump in. What's most important is just getting your foot in the door. If you like one, you'll want to play the rest. Now Ishin though, save Ishin until you're familiar and can get the cool winks and nods for the longtime fans. Or don't, hey, defiance is okay. Anyway, tangent aside, now that we've established that the series is called Like a Dragon, your next question is probably where this game takes place in the series, especially since it has no number in the title. It's a great question. So as Gaiden suggests, this is a side story that's set in the background of the main series, set in 2018 after the events of 2016's Yakuza 6. Supposedly it will detail what Kiryu got into after that game and perhaps some of what he got into during the events of 2020's Yakuza Like a Dragon. Again, the names and stuff here may risk confusing you, so you should basically view Yakuza Like a Dragon as Yakuza 7 or Like a Dragon 7 if you're keeping the series rebrand in mind. Interviews from those working on the game suggest that it's meant to be friendly to newcomers while also answering questions that longtime fans have about what Kiryu got into after Yakuza 6. And for clarity, Like a Dragon Gaiden is an action brawler like the old Yakuza entries. It isn't a JRPG like Yakuza Like a Dragon is. So if you've seen the trailer for Gaiden and noticed how Kiryu is going by the codename Joryu now, you may have put two and two together to realize that Kiryu is undercover. In fact, he has no name now, apparently. What made Kiryu go undercover? Well, to get into that means spoiling the ending of Yakuza 6. At the time it came out, it was a much bigger spoiler than it is now. It feels like a coin flip on whether Gaiden will actually refer to this outright, or if it'll just assume a player already knows or doesn't even need to know it. Personally, my bet is on them heavily glossing over details or telling a story complete and stand enough on its own that it isn't necessary to know any of that going in. Now, it's generally my advice that, yeah, you should experience the whole series and then jump into Gaiden once you're caught up. The series is one of my favorite things in the world, and I want everyone to experience it. That said, sometimes a new game comes out and you just want to be part of the buzz and part of the conversation as it comes out. It's exciting, right? We all like to do it. Not to mention that, yeah, there are so many of these games now that it can seem impossible to catch up in a timely manner. Maybe you just want to jump in and say screw it. So hey, I put together some spoiler story events that you should know leading into the events of Like a Dragon Gaiden if you just want to jump right in for whatever reason you have. So I'll touch on some select events that I feel are necessary from Yakuza 5, Yakuza 6, and Yakuza Like a Dragon, while also assuming some basic knowledge of the series. I'm also going to touch on Lost Judgment ever so slightly, so if you don't want these spoilers, thanks for hanging out, thanks for clicking the video. But if you're cool with being spoiled, hopefully this helps gives you a rough foundation going into Gaiden. Just don't say I didn't warn you about the spoilers. So the reason I chose Yakuza 5 to start with is that by this point in the series, the stoic Kazuma Kiryu has been doing the one more last job thing for a while now. After becoming the 4th chairman of the expansive Tojo clan Yakuza group, and after trying to peacefully retreat from that life and run the orphanage in the opening of Yakuza 3, he keeps finding himself entangled in crime plots. In Yakuza 5, he's moved to Fukuoka and assumed an entirely new identity as a cab driver named Taichi Suzuki. He's done so as Haruka, his adoptive niece, is trying to make it as a pop idol star during the course of the game. As a former chairman of the Tojo clan, Kiryu still being at large leaves her as a target that someone can always use to get to him. Unfortunately, in an extensively long line of scenarios where Kiryu does something without thinking, assuming it'll just work, Daigo Dojima, the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan Yakuza group, soon hails Kiryu's cab and basically reveals to him that he's known exactly where Kiryu was this whole time, so his hiding wasn't really that great. Yakuza 5 goes on to have the usual spree of twists and double twists, with Haruka making it as a pop idol and Saejima shouting "Baba!" before landing at the ending where Haruka renounces her pop idol career and announces that Kiryu raised her, basically doxing him. And as you can imagine, this complicates Kiryu's motivation of distancing himself from Haruka so that she can be safe from threats on his life. Also complicating this is the fact that he's bleeding out in the streets a few miles away, cue a cliffhanger, and cue Yakuza 6 coming 4 years after. Just by the way, neither here nor there, Yakuza 0 came out between these games. They really left people on that cliffhanger and then decided to go back to the 1980s. Worth it though. Anyway, as you'll learn when you play through the Yakuza games, they like faking out Kiryu's death. As it turns out, hey, he's alive and must now serve time for his crimes. But once Kiryu finally gets out, he discovers that Haruka left the orphanage and has effectively gone missing. While on the trail to track her whereabouts, she is involved in a hit-and-run incident where Kiryu finds out about her newborn son Haruto. Now, most of the game plot isn't really relevant here, so I'm skipping past all of it for your future benefit. Much like I skipped over about 1,000 plot twists in Yakuza 5, all you really need to know is that Kiryu once again gets tangled up in another winding crime drama, this time with an enemy that has no qualms about involving civilians in Yakuza conflict. This villain abducts Haruka and Haruto and brings them to help gloat over Kiryu with a gun pointed at her head all the while. Kiryu takes about 7 silly pipe swings to the head and puts a stop to his villainy, all while potentially dying. Okay, Yakuza 6 at least has the decency to answer to death fakeout in its own runtime at least. Something about seeing Haruka and Haruto dragged to him and threatened in front of him finally made it click for Kiryu that maybe no matter how far he tries to distance himself from Yakuza squabbles, those he loves will continue to be in danger. So, when a politician visits him in the hospital to use money to hush the events of the game away, if you catch my drift, Kiryu instead requests that the politician pull some strings for the hospital to officially issue him a death certificate. To the world he will be dead, so that no one will ever threaten Haruka, Haruto, or the orphanage in general again to try to get to him. This was a very detested ending at the time, for context, with most not understanding why Kiryu would fight so hard to live peacefully at the orphanage just to throw it all away here. The funny eye patch man you've probably seen in memes makes a comment about Kiryu always thinking 10 steps ahead, but really this felt like another situation where Kiryu got an idea in his head, figured it'd work, and didn't really think it through. I can get why people were upset, but I never found it particularly outrageous myself. Yakuza 6 was meant to be Kiryu's final chapter, and things got too close for comfort in the ending. Like, it's dumb, but I can see why he thought it would work. Then, I don't know, I've lost the plot with the Kiryu stuff, I'm not gonna lie to you. It was part of 6's marketing that it would be Kiryu's final chapter. Not long after Yakuza 6, we got a trailer announcing the next mainline entry, with Kiryu passing the torch on to Kasuga Ichiban, who would be the new series protagonist. So the story goes. Yakuza Like a Dragon releases, introduces Ichiban and his new crew, and hey, things go great. But at a certain point in the game, there's a pact formed between the two major Yakuza groups in Japan to effectively sign a peace treaty and hand in dissolution notices to the police. Unhappy with this, members of both groups start fighting bodyguards the heads of the groups appointed, as they knew the news wouldn't be taken well, and one particular would-be assailant grabs a knife and charges one of the leaders, but is stopped by a man. That man is purported to be a nameless bodyguard, but is of course Kazuma Kiryu, so yeah, Kiryu's final chapter wasn't so final. He gets a bit more involved with the story after this, but then basically vanishes after a fight with Ichiban in a chapter literally called Passing the Torch. Did you get it? It's like, he didn't need to be in Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I guess the team making the games didn't feel quite done with Kiryu yet. Maybe they looked at the fan response to Yakuza 6 and went, we could do a little better, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, it's increasingly obvious now that they're not done with him, with Like a Dragon Gaiden aiming to elaborate on what he got into after Yakuza 6, and with Kiryu seemingly being a central protagonist in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which is Like a Dragon 8 in Japan. We have no clue at this time why he's returning to the main spotlight, but if I had to guess, Kiryu's aim to pretend to be dead and hide away kinda fell flat when he showed himself in a room full of Yakuza who then know that he's alive. And word travels fast. I really don't get his thinking there, but I guess that's what Like a Dragon Gaiden is for to explain. Anyway, it's not exactly a central plot focus of Lost Judgment, a game that takes place in the same city districts as the Like a Dragon series, but some of that game's antagonist rose from the ashes of the dissolved Yakuza groups, opportunistically forming new groups to take advantage of the sudden power vacuum left behind. There's nothing in Lost Judgment you need to know about for following along with the main series, but a neat add-on effect of playing it is that you get to see a bit of how the cities are dealing with this sudden shift in the power dynamics of the criminal underworld. So, if I had to take a general guess, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth will continue to deal with that shift, taking the baton and running with it to establish a new group with new villains looking to make a new name for themselves. Now, I'm writing and recording this literally hours before they give more details on the game, so we'll see if anything throws that hypothesis in either direction, and if I need to add more here, hopefully I don't. Hey, editing me here, just to update? Nope, I'm on the right track going by the cutscenes they showed. Okay, back to the video. But I think that's why Kiryu is getting involved again. He happens to have a lot of experience with getting called in to help settle Yakuza squabbles. The thing that made him reveal himself from hiding was helping ensure that the Yakuza groups dissolved peacefully. So he has a vested interest in making sure no sparks cause a flame from rising again, so to speak. But that's just me speculating. We'll have no idea until these games are out, and honestly, I can't wait. No matter how many of these games come out, I always get so excited when a new one is on the way, and hopefully with this video, you're now set to jump in and end up in the same boat. I gave you pretty much all the bare essential spoiler context you should need if you just want to jump into Like a Dragon Gaiden. If you still have any questions, feel free to get at me in the comments, and I'll try to clear things up. Hopefully you like the games when you do give them a try. A huge thank you to my patrons for their support as always, ones like Adrian, Alex, Buckles Chucklo, Cooking Mama, Daniel, Goldstorm07, Harry, Hero, James Boss, Jeet, Joey, Common CJ, Patrick Thompson, Professor Jash, Svendelica, That Trav Guy, and The Crazy Even. Thank you.